Hello, my name's Tom Carhill, and it's the 7th of May 2014. This is going to be a quick one. It's about the Woolwich Hoax, where apparently these two black men have gone along and chopped this guy called Lee Rigby's head off. Then it turns out they haven't chopped his head off. The car's been speeding along and hit him deliberately from the other side of the road, in a very busy road, because they've seen, despite the fact he's wearing civilian clothing, that he is a soldier because he's got this little "Help the Heroes" or something badge on it. Got across the other lane of traffic, driven at extremely high speed, knocked him over, and hit a lamppost, wrapped the car around the lamppost. They must have hit it at a very, very high speed. Obviously none of this happened, but if you bear with the official story, there's about a million things that just could never have happened in it. Then this guy, they've got out, lopped his head off. They're fine. They wrapped the car around the lamppost, absolutely fine. They just got out, chopped him to pieces. Some passers-by just wandered around. Some of them walked right near them. This is all on film. It seems like there was two simultaneous films of it because they don't quite add up, because some of them have like blood all over the place, some don't. There's all sorts of ridiculous anomalies, clearly fake. And then this Rigby character, his family have got this website up, like a begging website for like Help the Heroes t-shirts the next day. So like they're obviously extremely concerned about their not son. The whole thing is complete bollocks, right? But for anyone who hasn't looked into this, I'd refer you to Chris Spivey, Spivey. Chris Spivey has done quite some good coverage on this. A lot of other people have. It's even more stupid than the Boston bomb hoax, and it is a hoax. Make no mistake about it. If that Lee Rigby even existed in the first place, I'd be very surprised. And those two guys, they've apparently got like these massively long sentences, like not as long as those 3 or 4 Pakistani peace protesters who didn't blow anything up on the tubes, and they said bombs failed to detonate. They didn't even have detonators. So they haven't, to be fair to them, they haven't gone to prison as long as those peace protesters have, which isn't funny at all, and I think they will be out soon, actually. I don't think they're going to be able to keep them in there. I think too many people caught on to that, or too many important, significant people, sorry. But anyway, I want to cut out all this. That was a completely obvious hoax. It's the most obvious hoax there's ever been. Right now, that's a fact. The next question is, if you're doing an obvious hoax, which has got like geographic parameters, it's got lots of people involved, all that type of stuff, I would have thought they'd want a dry run. I understand that the motive of it is to start wars in other countries like Syria and places like that. I understand that. I understand that. That's the motivation. But what's the motivation behind making it so obviously a hoax? Now, I know what the answer is to this. It's a gauge to see how stupid the ignorant, thick as fuck British public are. We all know they're as thick as fuck. Anyone who's got a fully functioning brain, they're totally brainwashed. They're taking in fluoride, they're taking in this, taking in that, taking the other. Brains aren't even working properly. They're completely taken over with fear. They think little brown people are hiding under the bed, coming after to get them to blow them up, and they think we need to just go and invade everywhere. That's what the average British person thinks. But they simultaneously think we shouldn't invade anywhere, and little brown people are good, because that's also been put in. Completely double thing. It's been completely programmed into them. They're completely good for nothing. They can't do anything anymore. 90% of them at least. Point is, right, just as you might like to gauge a positive like an intelligence, sometimes you have to gauge negative. So this, as I said, the reason that they've done the false flag, or the hoax, is to, get us to, the idiots, to get really scared and think we've got to go invade everyone. They won't question it, or they will question it, but they go along with it because they think, oh, actually better get the niggers rather than get ourselves. And the niggers in the country will think that as well, and all the little brown people in the country, fucking hell, there are blacks coming to come and get us. It's all completely racist. The whole thing is completely based on racial lines. It is. They're trying to scare you of people because they look different, because it's the easiest way to get you to associate with them. Because to try and educate the British public on a sort of fantasy story about why we should invade Syria would be so difficult because they're so ignorant. This is blacks, whites, every single person in the country. I'm not picking on any particular group here. Is that you'd never convince them. You would never convince Pakistanis anyway. They're the ones you actually would never convince, because of course they actually know that it's all bullshit and it's all been set up. But they're about the only ones who really know. The Muslim Pakistanis and a few Bangladeshis and stuff like that. That's the group, the Pakis, if you want to call it that. That would be the group. The point is, everybody else in the country is in a complete state of confusion, or the very great majority of them, and they're all in a complete state of confusion, and they just don't know what's going on. So, this is my question. What happened before then as a test run to see if this would work? So, I'm saying it was definitely aimed to cause racist wars in other countries, because I'm talking about the mentality here. Obviously, I'm not using politically correct language, because politically correct language is nonsense, and it's not what actually is going into people's brains, yeah? So you can iron things out to be nice and everybody likes them. That just means nobody will get the message. The point is, we know that we've got to think that all these little brown people in the Middle East and the Indian countries and Africa are all complete cunts who need to be killed, and they're savages and they're going to get us. I understand that's what the point of it is, because we're going to constantly invade these countries and kill everybody. But why did they make it look so obviously fake? And then, as soon as you sort of think about that, why and what was the precursor to it? Because they must have had a precursory incident. Now, I'm entertaining the idea that it could have been 7/7, because even if we accept that all the people died who they said died, obviously they weren't killed by bombs from Muslims, or Jamaicans even, because they got killed, didn't they? They got murdered at Canary Wharf after the bombs went off. So that's an impossibility. And also the way the bombs blew up on the trains and stuff, that proves that to be wrong. And also there's the fact about the electric charges and stuff. So there's something very, there's a numerous amount of complicated layers there that were put in just for a laugh by the people who did it. But the point is, I'm sure, because that's in the underground, it's much easier to fake. People get these kind of major details making it impossible. The average person can't pick up on them. They're just too stupid and lazy and totally uneducated, de-educated. So they can never actually. They're so uneducated by the large education system that they can't actually think. So, for instance, someone gives them a load of information, they should be able to piece it all together and work out what could and couldn't have happened. But they can't do that anymore. It's absolutely impossible. So if you say, well, that thing blew up at this time, it blew up over there, there was a person in front of it, they didn't die, but somebody 30 metres away died, and there was a hole over by the person in the 30 metres away area that was blasted upwards, and all the other people around that person at that end said they had these electric shocks and loads of them had their feet blown off. I mean, if a normal person with a normal, fully functioning brain actually heard that story, they'd be able to work out what happened and what hadn't happened. But of course, the education system in England makes you not be able to understand simple stuff like that. It's sounds very, very, for someone listening from another country, you'd think, well, that just sounds mad. They must be able to understand. Now, they can't understand that because they just ignore absolutely anything that doesn't fit an exact conclusion. So, for instance, the BBC will tell them something, they'll talk for 2.5 minutes, and at the end they'll have an exact, definite conclusion about what happened. And the truth is, when you're talking to an intelligent person, normally they'll say, I don't exactly know what happened, but I know what didn't happen, and I think this might have happened, and this is a possible theory. They cannot handle that kind of talk. It's absolutely impossible for them to think about it, right? The point is, on top of this, it's very important. In your head, right, people are visually driven. And they're also, as well as visually driven, they're driven by short, sharp kind of concepts. So, for instance, when I'm saying that they think the Pakis are under the bed coming to get them, I do actually mean that. Because that's what because lots of Pakistanis came to the country, and they sort of went everywhere. And there was Indians as well. People just call them Pakis because I can't tell the difference by looking at them. You can tell there are differences between, but the thing is, there's lots of different types of Indians and there's lots of different types of Pakistanis. But the thing is, they're not white Europeans, are they? And they're not Negroes from Africa. So you see what I'm trying to say? So they've tried to steal that word away, and then people don't know what to call them because you call them Indians when they're having a big war with Pakistan, and they're actually a Pakistani. They go, "Oh, you're racist." But of course, India's a continent, and also it's a country. Pakistan is in the continent of India. You see how confusing it is, yeah? And if you call them Muslims, well, that's ridiculous because there's white Muslims. Yet in England they completely confuse the whole thing around. So you've got to get back to basics. Don't worry about political correctness too much because it's stupidity. It's an absolutely been designed by Jews to completely confuse the fuck out of absolutely everybody, and they've done very well at it. And they even apply it to themselves because it makes them even more ambiguous. Just think about this particular one here, right? What's happened? What was the precursor to it? It's a very confusing one. I don't know what the answer is because there must have been a precursor. I don't think they'd have had the bottle to just go and do it then and there. And if the precursor was 7-7, what was the precursor to 7-7? There must have been something. I know there was big things happening, like they fitted up that Barry George for shooting Jill Dando. That was a big deal, but it didn't have all the parameters. She just walked out of her house or walked into her house, I forget, and from what I hear, some East European hitman shot her on behalf of the British establishment, didn't he? And again, that's another thing they say is a distraction. Like, did you see the British government killed her? Would that be MI6 then? Or MI5? Well, no, because you never use your own side to shoot someone. You get someone, you subcontract someone from another security agency. So they'd be in the Mossad, because there's lots of them all hanging around in every country. They'd be either in the CIA, or they'd be in some like German intelligence, Dutch intelligence. You wouldn't get someone from Pakistan intelligence because then there's a sort of obvious racial difference. Do you see where I'm coming from? You know, you wouldn't get a Paki to shoot her. You get a white person to shoot her because it's hard to track. Because it's in England, they're white. In the fuss and the confusion, they're hardly going to work out, oh, that guy looks Hungarian. Oh, no, he looks a bit more Romanian. Or he looks a little bit more like he might be from Poland. They're just going to say, boom, 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 white person. Do you see what I mean? Hopefully I've made my point well there. I'm not trying to unnecessarily annoy anyone any more than it's necessary for them to start thinking about these things as they should think about them. You know, just try and use your brain once in a while and don't let words offend you. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but names will never hurt you. Thanks very much. Let me know what your views are. My name's Tom Carhill. It's the 7th of May 2014.